Hello and welcome to Veggie Lane. I'm Executive Chef Gretchen Hanson and this is my co-host Paula Kyle. And we're here again this week to teach you how to make some wonderful plant-based foods that are easy, fast, and delicious to make for your family. So everything you see here are ingredients we can get out of a grocery store, and we're going to make everything while we're standing here.
And what are we going to make today, Gretchen?
Today, Paula, what we're going to make is we're going to make a creamy soup with wild rice and lots of vegetables. And then we're also going to make a vegan feta cheese. One of the things that people say to me all the time as a vegan chef is they say, I could be vegan too if, number one, you cooked for me all the time, and number two, I could give up dairy, but I can't. So I'm going to teach you how to do dairy in a different way, to do dairy out of nuts, to do dairy out of organic tofu, to do dairy in a different way that is not about eating animal proteins. And we all know everyone needs to eat less animal proteins. The jury's in on that one, right?
Absolutely, and you know, you are so right, because I became a vegan 3 years ago after being a vegetarian for practically 40 years, and I regret that I didn't become a vegan sooner, but it was because of the dairy. And so many of my vegetarian friends are saying, well, you know, I just love the dairy, I can't give it up. But it's easy to give it up, and you are going to just show us some delicious ways to enhance that decision.
Right, so the key is the mouthfeel with dairy. When you have something that has heavy cream in it, it gives you that wonderful feel in your mouth that is fatty and rich and wonderful and just, you know, like you gnaw on it a little bit. So there are a couple things we're going to do, and one of the rules of the kitchen is you always start with your long fires first. And what that means is you do the things that take the longest first. It's simple, common sense, but you're not starting with something that's quick and easy. You go to the things that are hard and tedious. So last week we talked about soaking cashews, and one of the problems is that nobody ever remembers to soak their cashews. I keep a container of cashews in my refrigerator all times. I change the water out constantly, so I always have cashews ready to go. So those are actually raw. But if you don't remember, and if you come home and you think, I didn't remember to soak my cashews, I don't have any nut creams in the house, I'm just going to quickly do that. These are raw cashew pieces, and the pieces are cheaper than the whole ones, so buy the pieces because they're at least $1 or $2 or $3 a pound cheaper. Make sure they're raw, make sure they're organic, and then just sprinkle them in a little bit of boiling water, right like this. We're going to let this water come back up to a boil, and then we're just going to turn it off and let it sit for 10 minutes. Now these over here we've soaked already. They're ready to go. If we had remembered to soak those overnight, like we should have remembered, these would be raw, these are cooked. It's a little bit of a difference. Now with our vegan feta, what we're going to do is we're going to take an organic, non-GMO, very important tofu. And this is an extra firm tofu. And you're just going to plop that right in that pan, and then we're going to throw a couple things in there with you. All right. The first and most important ingredient is miso. Now miso is a little bit of a challenge, I'll admit, to find in a grocery store, but it's becoming more common. So this is an organic white miso, and I'm just going to throw a little bit of that in, all right? And then a little bit of tahini. Now tahini is a sesame seed paste, and this is an organic. I like this one a lot. Tahini should always be creamy. It should never be clunky or chunky. Then we're going to throw a little bit of lemon juice. Just enhance the water, and I'm going to throw a little tiny bit of my veg base in here because I pretty much put this in everything. So
I love the veg base.
And if you need to get directions on this, they're on my website, myhobos.com. So I'm going to season this with a little bit of herbs, and this happens to be parsley, but you could add crushed red pepper, you could add oregano, you could add whatever your heart desires into this. Now this is the vegan feta, like I said, and this is going to come up to a simmer. And as it comes up into a simmer, you're going to break up those little clumpy clumps, okay? Now I'm going to turn off that over there, the cashews. We're going to turn those off and just lift those off the heat. And I'm going to start over here. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add my roasted onions and my roasted garlics into the pan. A nice satisfying sizzle. And again, we always start with roasted onions and garlic that we keep in our refrigerator. And I'm going to trouble you to hand me the carrots and the celery. And break up that a little bit. All right, so these are colored carrots, and one of the things I always say is eat your colors of your rainbow. And one of the easy ways to do that is if you can get rainbow colored carrots, by all means do it. Each one of them is loaded with different antioxidants, all right? So we're gonna sprinkle in a little bit of diced celery, a little bit of diced carrots, and I'm gonna throw a couple of baby bellas into here as well. And we're gonna stir this and let it work its magic. I'm going to season a little bit. You're going to stir that.
Okay.
Try not to mash up the tofu.
Okay.
We want to keep it like a vegan chunk.
Okay.
So like a feta, like you would cut a piece of feta, so it's going to be a chunk of feta when you're done with it. And I'm going to throw a little bit of parsley into this. And maybe a little bit of fresh onion, which I just happen to have over here, so why not? So while these carrots are cooking and while the feta is cooking, we're going to let our cashews cool down a little bit, and then we're going to puree them like we did last week.
Okay.
This week, we're going to puree them and we're going to season them to go savory, okay? So we're going to season them as a savory cream. You see how beautiful this is? See all the different colors, how it's melding?
Yes.
Now this at the end of its existence here in the pan is going to be a cream of wild mushroom soup, okay? So many people love mushroom soup when they were kids, or they remember it from Thanksgiving, or all these different things. We're taking this and we're grading it up a notch in health. So we're using a raw nut butter, we're using all fresh vegetables. Notice we did not put any flour in this. We don't have any roux. We didn't use gluten-free flour or even regular flour. There's no roux in this at all. The only oils we're using in the pan was the organic canola that we used to roast the onions and the garlic in the first place. So there's no added fat into the pan here at all. All our fats are going to come from our nut butters. Our wild rice, which we have over there in the bowl, has already been pre-steamed just a little bit in one of those little cheap rice makers that I showed you last week. In a cheap little rice maker. So it's pre-steamed and partially cooked. Now, one of the things with the darker rices is the darker rices take longer to cook, all right? So it's not like you put a minute rice in a pan or throw it in the microwave and bing.
Yes.
So you always have to think, how long is it going to take my rice to cook? I should get that ready first, right? So I generally start steaming my wild rice the minute I walk through the door. I throw it in the pot and get it ready. And then I start cooking everything else, because by the time this is at the point where the vegetables are getting softened, we're going to be ready to go to the next step.
And how long did you cook this in the rice cooker?
It usually goes about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then it'll be ready to go to the next step. So when we come back, we're going to show you where we go next.
Okay.
Hart, what's going on?
I'm leaving.
Why? What did I do?
Not enough. You constantly ignore me. You barely eat anything healthy. You're half as active as you used to be. The pressure is just too much. I quit.
Okay, I get it. I'll do better. Just
Please, don't leave. Okay. But remember, if I go, you go.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw on the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
This is cooking away. You can see how it's beginning to brown a little bit. You can see your carrots begin to soften and your celery begin to soften. We added a little bit of liquid to it. And I'm going to add a little bit of my ubiquitous veggie base because I love this stuff. It's so awesome. So I'm going to add a little bit of that to it. And I'm going to let this cook away. Your feta is done. It just now needs to chill. So what's going to actually happen is this tofu is going to absorb the flavors that we just put in there. The tahini, the miso, the oregano, the parsley, the herb the white pepper, all those different flavors are going to get molded in. So why don't you scrape that into a bowl, and we're going to go throw that in the freezer.
Okay, scrape
and
it.
just let it get chilled by the time we're ready to eat. You don't need to scrape it, just pour it. You're good. Yeah, there you go. Excellent. Okay,
and I'm going to
so
put
let's
it
just
in the
pop that in
freezer.
the freezer. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to do our very loud nut butter again. So we're going to add the cashews into our Vitamix. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of expensive equipment. But this piece of equipment I do love. If you happen to just have a blender, then use your blender by all means. You're just gonna have to listen to it for a lot longer than we're gonna have to. So you're gonna lift this up, there you go. Boom. You just keep pushing that down. There you go. You got it, Paula. Good. So this is the point that we would add seasonings into our cashew cream. Okay, so pull that little pole out of the center there, and I'm gonna let you season this. This is actually my favorite seasoning for cashew cream because you can take it in either direction. So it's a little tiny hint of agave nectar. Just drop, drop, drop. Maybe 3 drops for that much. Whoops, you took the whole top off. So try it. It's probably better than having an accident. Watch the agave.
3 drops.
Quickly. There you go. 1, 2, a little bit more. 1 more. There you go. 3 big drops.
Okay.
All right, now take a pinch of nutmeg and a pinch of cayenne, and don't breathe in the cayenne, it will make you sneeze, I promise you. And just a little pinch of the herbal sea salt.
Where do you get this?
That's my favorite thing. That's a blend that's on our website. There is one that is made commercially, which I will also have on the website as well. It's called Herbamare, but the recipe for this that we make is on the website. It's all organic herbs and a little bit of sea salt crystals. So it cuts down your salt consumption by a lot. And a lot of people are trying to reduce their sodium. So I use this exclusively in my restaurant. So now you're gonna push that down and you're gonna make that blend just a wee bit until it emulsifies. There you go. All right, so this is a very, very thick cream. It's like a sour cream even, or a heavy, heavy, heavy cream that's been whipped up. So needless to say, we can use this very sparingly. We're not gonna use this as if we're pouring milk. We're gonna use this as if we're adding and having cream. Now this is already cooking heavily. So I'm gonna put in my wild rice. That's cooked really nicely. You see how the kernels have popped in this?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
that's important for wild rice. You don't want to buy those pre-cooked mixes where the kernels are already popped. You want to do that yourself. It's exciting. Wild rice is not actually rice, it's a seed, if you didn't know that.
How interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and it's grown in our country, which is also extremely interesting. It's native to here. So I'm gonna throw a little bit of Madagascar pink rice that I happen to have left over from our pink rice pudding. I'm gonna throw a little bit of that in there too. And I'm gonna throw a little bit more liquid in here. And then you're gonna take that cashew cream, and we're gonna pour just a little bit. I'm gonna show you when you get to that right place with this. You wanna make sure you have no chunks of cashews in there, which you don't, you pureed that beautifully. There you go, stop right there. Let's see how that looks. Because you don't wanna add too much or it's going to be very, very, very thick. This is just to make it look as if it's a half and half. Now, as we cook this a little bit more, this is going to meld and reduce, and it's gonna be very much like a Minnesota wild rice stew. That you could get in the Midwest. It's a hearty dish. It's very, very filling, and it's a wonderful center of the plate dish. So you could serve this with a salad, and it's a beautiful supper. So why don't you stir that for a minute and let that happen?
And it's a complete protein too.
It is a complete protein because you have the wild rice in it. You also have the cashews. And the wonderful things about cashews as nuts is they are a complete protein. So they're a great source of vegan protein for those of you who are going more plant-based. You also don't have all the added dairy fats that you would have if you put cream in this. And let's face it, how many of us would actually indulge with heavy cream in a soup? I wouldn't. I'd be like, yeah, I want to, but I can't.
Well, you know, if let's say I still ate cream, I would do it once every 6 months.
Right, exactly. This is something you can eat once a week, once a night.
Yes.
It's good for you rather than the reverse. It's actually helping your heart. It's helping everything about your body.
Isn't that wonderful?
Right, exactly. Now I will say, let me just throw a little addendum in here. There are people that are on a no oil and plant-based diet because of heart disease, and that's something entirely different. You do have to avoid the nuts with that, and we'll talk about some tofu cheeses that you can use in that case. For most relatively healthy plant-based people, or people that just want to go a little bit more plant-based, raw cashews are an amazing source of protein, amazing source of fat. It's a good fat for your body. It's a fat that makes you actually lean and makes your metabolism increase, believe it or not. So good stuff. So we're going to keep stirring this for a little bit, and when we come back, it'll be ready to taste.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
So Paula, in just that long, literally 15 minutes, the feta has chilled in the freezer. We put it in the freezer rather than the refrigerator to chill. So we have to remember to pull it out or it will freeze rock solid. You would normally put that in the refrigerator if you were doing it for the next day. So I've pulled it out and tossed it on top of a kale salad with just a little bit of diced carrots and cherry peppers. That has a little bit of a extra virgin olive oil, which I love, first fresh, and a little bit of red wine vinegar. And it's a perfect salad. You could use this to make a vegan Greek salad. You could use this for just about anything. It's great to blend or puree with other root vegetables or vegetables as a dip as well. But what it does is it infuses a ton of flavor into that tofu, so it actually has the texture and feel of regular feta.
Well, I'm going to try it here.
It's delicious, right?
It does have the texture.
It has the
feel
texture feta,
and
right.
taste. It's amazing.
Now you could also add different types of herbs to that. You could add a crushed red pepper or oregano or parsley or anything that you wanted to. Now while we've been talking, this is also melded. The great thing about cream, not cream-based soups, is that they never separate. I don't know if this has ever happened to you in the kitchen, but you go to make a cream soup and you go to serve it and all of a sudden it's separated.
Yes, yes.
And that happens all the time. Never happens with nut creams. I mean, look how smooth and creamy that is. And I really have been doing next to nothing at all. So I'm just going to plate this up for you to try.
Okay.
And look at all the beautiful colors on that bowl.
Gorgeous.
I could have done a better job plating, I apologize. Here we go. Take that away, there you go. It's hot, be careful.
Okay.
Is it good? All right, I wanted to double check that.
It's wonderful.
There you go.
It is wonderful.
That's really rich. Now,
It
we
is.
could have added a little bit more richness to that if we'd added our porcini dust. We forgot to do that this time, but I will make sure that goes into the recipe that we put online. Remember we ground the porcini dust the last time and we used that in several dishes? We're actually going to use that again next week.
Okay.
So I would have added that to this to give it a much more rich and meaty mouthfeel. The other thing we could do is we could use different types of rice. You don't need to use the wild rice. We could also have used any sort of bean or pulse or legume. We could have done this with a black French lentil. We could have done this with a any form of rice, any form of pulse, any form of bean. If we had not had our beans soaked or cooked before we came home, instead of doing a wild rice, cooking it in the steamer, we could have opened a couple cans of beans and used those instead. The concept here is a cream soup that's hearty and rich. It doesn't matter what your grain is in that soup. And what your vegetable is for that matter as well. It's multi-purpose. You could use almost anything.
Including quinoa?
Including quinoa, absolutely. Now be careful with the quinoa that you don't add it till almost the very end, because quinoa, when it overcooks, it gets very gummy. So you want to make sure that you might even just stir in the quinoa at the end of the cooking, or use a black or a red quinoa, which have more hardiness and more, they hold together better in a deeper dish, in a savory dish. I use the white quinoa mostly for breakfast puddings or desserts, and I use the dark brown or the black quinoa for savory dishes. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Well, this is just superb. It's hearty, and it's comfort food, and yet it has that array of flavors that it tastes gourmet. So you could impress company with this, and it's incredibly simple to make.
It is simple to make, and one of the things that people are constantly complaining about with the vegan diet is that it's not satisfying enough. It's not filling enough. I'm always hungry, or I'm just eating raw vegetables all the time and I can't fill up. So yes, you want to eat lots of raw vegetables because let's face it, that's good for your heart, it's good for your body, it's good for everything about you. But you also want to have rich, comforting, nourishing food that you can go to sleep on a full tummy, and this is a full tummy kind of meal for me. And so something I could curl up in the covers and watch Banshee.
It really is like that. And you know what? I am a big fan of leftovers, and I know that if you put this in the refrigerator and then heat it up the next day, it's going to be equally delicious, if not better.
So when you do heat these up, you do want to be careful that you add a little bit more liquid as you're heating, and you want to make sure that it doesn't scald on the bottom of the pan. Because when you put this into a pan, it's going to, the nut cream is going to scald on the bottom the same way a regular cream is. So be careful. When you add it to the pan, start off with a cooler pan, get it warmer, add more liquid in, and mix it up.
Water.
Say water, yes, more liquid, yes. Exactly. So you want to make sure that you can heat it slowly.
Well, it's just so thrilling to me as a vegan. I never regretted becoming a vegan. I love being a vegan. I thought I was going to miss cheese, but I thought, no, I'm just so committed to the whole philosophy and ethics of vegan. I didn't mind giving it up. But now I've come to find out that I can have cheese. I can have feta cheese. I can have cream of mushroom soup. I can have fettuccine Alfredo. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful to know that I can do that.
Yeah, and some of the processed cheeses, the vegan processed cheeses, they don't melt as well as maybe you would want them to, or they're not reminiscent of the flavor of cheese. And a lot of the complaint of people when they're cooking at home is the vegan cheeses are too complicated to make. I think we've shown quite easily here that vegan cheeses are not complicated to make. And in fact, next week we're going to do a cooked cheese that is very interesting, that you're going to see how quick and easy it is to do a firm cooked cheese that you can slice and shred and melt. And that's exciting.
On the subject of vegan cheeses and vegan creams, I imagine seeing you make the woozed up cashews, that it would just be a matter of adding a little bit of sugar to make vegan whipped cream.
Absolutely. It is exactly a matter of a little sugar. Although I wouldn't add regular sugar, I would add a demerara, which is less processed.
Of course.
Or an organic cane juice.
Cane juice.
Use less liquid as you're mixing the cashews rather than more, because less liquid makes it stiffer and harder, and it makes it easier to get those peaks that you need on a dessert. Okay. So organic cane juice is one of my go-to favorites. So next time we'll be doing some cooked cheeses, and I hope you've enjoyed this quick lesson on feta and a cream-based soup. I'd like to invite you to go to my website, which is myhobos.com, meaning it belongs to everyone, not just the hobos. And there you can find all our recipes that we've done here on Veggie Lane. They're all there and archived for you. Also, if you have a request or a question, just hit contact us and it will go directly into my personal email and I'll be able to answer you directly.
And also, all the videos of our shows have been uploaded onto the website.
We'll see you next week on Veggie Lane.